You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. It's crush season in Washington, a time when grape growers and winemakers are usually very busy working insane hours to make new wine. But a huge percentage of our state's highest quality wine won't be made this year. Sluggish wine sales have meant growers are letting some of their best fruit rot, sometimes right on the vine. And Washington growers and winemakers alike are concerned about the future of their business. Anna King, senior correspondent for Northwest Public Broadcasting, has been reporting on this, and she's here with us now. Welcome back to Soundside, Anna.
Great to see you, Libby. Thanks for having me on.
So set the scene for us. How much have wine sales declined in Washington?
I've been visiting wineries throughout the state, from Walla Walla to even Roseland, Washington, and many wineries are telling me that their sales are like super down. One winery told me that they're down 7%. That's enough to leave a huge stack of bottles and barrels of wine in their cellar. And another winery that I visited was Hedges Family Estates. And you've likely seen that wine at Costco's across the Northwest. And their winery has much of their 24 and their 23 vintage still in their cellar. So much wine, in fact, that they don't have much room for this year's vintage, Libby. I went out to see Sarah Goodhart on Red Mountain in Southeast Washington, and it was a super sad day. They were just busy harvesting her organic Merlot and then dumping it on the ground.
Yeah, so it's been a tough go for the past few years for everyone in the industry, and really for us, it's about keeping the family alive, the family legacy alive. These vines, this land has been a part of our life for almost 40 years, and we just want to see it go out on a positive note.
Wow, that just feels so wrong, the idea of dumping out perfectly good wine grapes like that. I know, Anna, that you've been driving all over the state reporting on this story. What are you seeing? I mean, what do these vineyards look like?
One day, I traveled out to Mattawa, which is near Vernita, if you know where the Vernita Bridge is, and to see a couple of vineyards that I had heard about out there. And one that I happened upon was just like a ghost vineyard, Libby. It was like a creepy cemetery of wine past. Acres and acres of wine grapes just withering on the vine. If you know how big a circle of alfalfa is, like a pivot of alfalfa, imagine three of those all together where the vines were all twisted and unkempt and unpruned. Another vineyard in that same area had just been totally torn out. Just acres and acres of grapes, just in big piles. And the piles were as large as like a two-car garage, Libby. And they were all assembled, and there was as many as like 80 piles in rows out there in this huge, massive field. And it looked like the site of some like ancient pyre ritual.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've seen this at least on the winery end here in Woodinville. Just in Woodinville alone, more than a dozen wineries have closed since the beginning of the year, according to the head of the Woodinville Wine Country Association. At its strongest, I mean, what was Washington State's wine industry like?
Washington State grew up from 19 winery licenses in 1981 to a whopping 1,070 in 2022. Now we're sitting at about 1,000. That's all according to the Washington State Wine Commission.
And I know you talked with some experts about why this is happening. We've covered some of the softening of demand here on Soundside. We did a segment about people drinking less, and one expert that we spoke with said people were looking at new research about consuming alcohol and their health, and also they were scaling back because they had maybe gone overboard in the pandemic and consumed a whole lot when everyone was on lockdown, and then they were kind of scaling that back and being drier in their everyday lives nowadays. What did you hear as to why the wine industry just has so much extra wine and they're not selling it?
Experts in the industry tell me that wine grape growers just have way too much fruit on their hands. They're dealing with slow wine sales, reduced exports like to places like Canada, which was our number one export market before the tariffs, that the Trump administration has imposed, and a shift in consumer preferences. Here's Natalie Collins. She's the president of the California Association of Wine Grape Growers based in Sacramento.
We're not seeing the newer generations, those that are newly 21, again, drinking alcohol as much, period. So it's not just wine, but it's alcohol as a whole category.
So I know, Anna, that it might be hard to say because people aren't really buying it, but are there any estimates for the value of these grapes that you're seeing these farmers having to either leave on the vine or dump out? I mean, what's the lost value here that isn't getting harvested?
So unsold grapes are remarkably hard to track because the USDA numbers lag the harvest by sometimes as much as a year. And there just aren't as good a numbers of like unharvested fruit as harvested fruit. But what we know is that on Red Mountain, each lost ton of wine grapes has usually been worth about $3,500. And each acre produces as much as 4 tons for higher end wine. On lower end wine, they might, harvest as much as 6 tons, but there are still probably thousands and thousands of acres across Washington, Oregon, California, and even the state of New York with this problem of too much fruit and nowhere to go.
Letting fruit wither and rot on the vine seems like this really drastic decision. Anna, did anybody that you spoke to suggest that sales could rebound? I mean, what are the risks for the industry as these trends continue?
The wine industry in Washington will survive. Everyone I spoke to thought so. But it could look really, really different, Libby. It could be more of a specialty or a boutique industry than it is today. And I spoke with this guy named Adam Schultz. He's a bulk wine matchmaker who lives in Pasco, Washington. He basically is like the Hinge for wine grapes. He tells, somebody that needs wine grapes where the wine grapes are.
Oh, like a dating app?
Yeah, or if they need bulk wine and they don't know where to find it, he finds it for them, and he makes these matches all over the country. And he's also kind of like James Harriet. He visits all these wineries around Washington and Oregon and even beyond. And he sees loads of winery makers, and he says they know they're in trouble. Many vineyards are coming online with loads of fruit, but much of it is uncontracted or doesn't have a home. There are wineries that aren't bringing in any grapes this year. And there are many more wineries that are cutting way back. They're dropping their fruit contracts and saying, we just don't need that red wine, or we don't need this wine. And so the vineyard managers are left holding the fruit. And Schultz says there's another danger. The wine industry may go past the point of balance.
Vineyard removal is accelerating. So at some point, we're going to cross the threshold where there isn't enough bulk wine inventory. There aren't enough grapes in the ground. When demand starts to return, we just don't know with declining consumption where that inflection point is.
Wow. So it sounds like a risky time in the industry, risky time of change, and also of projecting where demand is going to be. And if you've ripped out too many of these vines, that could be a problem in the future. Anna, tell me a bit more about how local growers and winemakers are trying to adapt here.
Some wineries are trying to make wine tasting more of an attractive experience. When I was out here as a young reporter, Libby, we would see busloads, like charter busloads, drive up dusty roads to wineries, offload like 60, 70 people, and they would drink hard. And then they'd get a little bit of wine and hop back on the bus to the next tasting room. Now tasters want a slower, more nuanced experience. They want to stay, they want to linger. And some wineries like LaCole and Loudon, Washington are catering to this. That winery has bought all new patio furniture. They furnish activities and charcuterie boards, and other wineries are banding together to even open shops in lower competition areas than Woodinville. Take Hightower Cellars. They've opened a new wine bar in the small mountain town of Roslyn near Cle Elum. It might be a bid to become a hang for the largely Seattle market in one of their favorite outdoor recreational playgrounds.
Oh, yeah. Tons of people, buying up vacation properties out there or renting, and you want a place to maybe go and sip some wine. It makes a lot of sense. Anna, before we wrap up, I want to go back to Hedges Family Estate and Sarah Goodhart. That story has stuck with me as we've been talking. And, you heard Sarah kind of mention this, but her family has been on the land for generations. What toll has this wine glut taken on the Goodhart family?
Yeah, this is Sarah's 24th vintage as a winemaker. She's heartbroken about all her good fruit going to waste. Her parents care about their legacy and their name, and they're just trying to hold it all together. And they've had to let off dozens of pickers, tasting room staff, cellar staff that they've employed for years. And it all feels just pretty terrible, Libby.
We're a mid-sized family winery, and there's a lot of us around here that have put our heart and soul into this for a long time. And really, the goal right now is to stay alive and survive and continue forward.
We've been talking with Anna King, senior correspondent for Northwest Public Broadcasting. Anna, thank you very much for your reporting here. And I know that the wine industry is a huge deal in Washington, and it's something that we're going to be following here through your reporting. Thank you.
Libby, it's always great to come on with you. You're such a gem, and even if it's the hard stuff, it's fun to talk to you.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. This show is only possible because listeners support us. If you're able to give right now, please check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.